Hi, this is Shanker, and it's a Saturday night. I thought I'll make a small video on Bhrigu Nadi principle. Now, I'm just trying to give you a principle which tries to explain the Bhrigu system, which is there in Mr. Rao's book, and my father was a very big proponent of it. So this is just to give you an idea, an example that how the whole system of Bhrigunari works, and it's like very interesting. Of course, I'm not going to the detailed rules of rotation of Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, etc., but just tell you the play of planets, how they do and how we have to understand. Let us take a horoscope where we don't have any lagna in Bhrigunari horoscope, so we do it as a Kalpurush. So let's understand a situation where in Aries you have Saturn and Moon. That is, Saturn is debilitated and Moon is there in the sign Aries. In the sign Taurus, that is the second house, we have Mars and Venus. Then in the sixth house you have Rahu. The sixth house you have Rahu, and that is Virgo. In Aquarius you have Buddha. Mercury is in the 11th house and in Aquarius. And in Pisces you have Jupiter, Surya and Ketu. So we have a situation where we have in Aries, we have Saturn and Moon, which is the first house. The 12th house to it has Jupiter, Surya and Ketu. The second house to Saturn and Chandrama is Taurus, which has a Mars and a Venus. Buddha is in the 11th house and Rahu is in the 6th house. Now let us see how the planets play. What you look at the horoscope and what it tells you. Now here, for profession, we always take Saturn as a very important planet, and one would see the Saturn is debilitated, etc., but let's not do it that way. Saturn here is debilitated. It is in the sign of Aries, the lord of which is Mars. When Saturn is debilitated, it is in the sign of Mars. Mars is a planet which handles disputes. So when Saturn is with mind, Moon is mind. So Saturn, the Karak of profession, the planet ruling profession, is with Moon, which is the planet of mind, and it is deposited in the next house. That is, the Lord is Mars, which is in Taurus, and it has Venus with it. So Saturn debilitated in the house of Mars means disputes. So this person would be in the area of handling disputes and quarrels. His mind will be engaged in disputes and quarrels. Now, since the depositor or the next planet to it is a Mars, it is with Venus, and Mars and Venus itself actually signify kinds of quarrels and disputes. So this reiterates that this person will be handling or will be somewhere in some kind of job where he will be engaged in quarrels, dispute, whether it will be now positive or negative. Let us see that. Because in the 12th house, from Saturn and Moon, we have Jupiter, Surya and Ketu. Now Jupiter is a planet for legal, profession, legality. It is in its own house. It is in Pisces, it is in own house. It is with Surya, which is again well placed. And Ketu in the system of Bhrigunadi is considered to be a good planet. It is a planet of multiplicity as far as profession is concerned. It gives you the idea to look at things deeply, to analyze things, to cut things, to go deep into them, and gives you knowledge of more than one thing. So Saturn and Moon, Saturn, the Karak of profession, here is with mind. The house next to it is Mars and Venus, which is again reiterates that he will be handling disputes somewhere connected with dispute, because Mars and Venus says that. And since 12 to it has Jupiter, Surya and Ketu, which shows it has knowledge, and he would be somewhere in the legal profession. So therefore, this gentleman would be somewhere in the arena of handling disputes and resolving disputes, etc. And he will be an intelligent person because of Jupiter being with Surya and Ketu. Now, the house 11th to Saturn is, we have Buddha. Buddha is the Karak for education, and the planet next to Buddha, that is the house second. The second house is the house which adds to the first house. It is the resource of the house. Suppose 8th house is the resource actually for the 7th house, and so on and so forth. So the next house to is always the resource of the first house, the house. So Buddha is in the house, and the house next to it has Surya, Jupiter and Ketu with it. So Budh, being the Karak of knowledge, has second to it Surya, Jupiter and Ketu, which shows again that the person would be having proficient in more than one subject. He would be dealing with government and he will be involved in the legal profession, which again is reiterated by taking Saturn as a Karak and analyzing things. So that is a broad thing which you can see, that this debilitated Saturn with the moon having Jupiter, Surya and Ketu 12 to it, Mars and Venus second to it, Budh 11th to it, and Sat and Rahu 6 to it, would be a person who would be in the legal profession and would be doing well. Mars and Venus itself handle disputes, but because Mars is with Venus and Venus is in own house, he'll be himself having a lot of disputes with people, but he would be successful and he would be dealing well with his own disputes. That is his family disputes that I do not want to. So this is how you have to analyze how Saturn plays. Now, when it will happen, how will it happen, depends on a lot of things, and you have to understand the Bhrigu system of how Saturn, how Saturn is rotated and other planets are also rotated. But now let us see the other aspect why I was telling you is the play of planet is. Now, what does this debilitated Saturn do? Now, debilitated Saturn is with Moon. Moon is, mostly in Bhrigu system is also been classified as the mind and as the person who is very promiscuous, who is interested in having relationships, who is interested in having, in meeting, in having, in getting into relationships. So Saturn here is debilitated. It is niche. It is with Moon. Now the next planet, the house next to it, has Mars and Venus in it. Now Saturn and Venus are actually good friends in the whole system of things. Saturn is a very bitter enemy of Mars. Saturn is not well disposed with Mars. Now therefore here what happens is that Saturn and Moon are engaged in a kind of a fight, and Saturn being weak and Saturn not being strong, here Saturn slips out, and Saturn is here held by Moon, because Saturn is in the house of Saturn is with Moon. It is held by Moon, and it goes to the next house. The next house has Mars and Venus in it, and when it energizes Mars and Venus in it, Saturn being niche, being a Chandal, Venus is more attracted towards Saturn. Now Venus in the whole area of activity of things is represented by lady, by a woman. Now here Saturn is niche, it is attracted by Venus. Now Mars cannot hold Saturn because it is in the house of Venus, and Mars is also a depositor of Saturn and Chandrama. Mars is a depositor of Saturn and Chandrama because Aries sign mein Saturn and Chandrama, it becomes a depositor of Saturn and Chandrama. So when Saturn goes ahead, it goes and contacts Venus. It goes and contacts Venus, and it is held by Moon, as I told you, and it is also held by Venus because Mars has its problems. It's in the house of Venus. So the Lord is Venus. So Venus actually helps Saturn because they are friends. And here Saturn is also held by Moon. It moves to the next house. So what does this mean? Now this means that the lady of the house, the wife, at some stage will elope with somebody who is a niche person, who's a niche ka kaam karne wala, Chandal hai, which is represented by Saturn, which is represented by Moon, which is held by Moon. It goes ahead. When it goes ahead, it actually meets Venus, which is the female. It is again held by Mars, but negatively, because Mars again actually represents Saturn and Moon. And this what happens is this lady goes and actually his wife would elope with somebody who is a Chandal. This is bound to happen. When it will happen is you have to see the play of things. And now also, if you look at the chart, the way Bhrigu Nadi horoscope is analyzed is that when Venus moves ahead, Venus moves 1 year ahead, the elopement may not be for a long time. And when Venus becomes weak, actually when Venus comes into Virgo, and with Rahu, it is not very weak, and then the lady would come back. But I would not go into those details. They have to see how how Venus travels, and when Venus understands and loses. Venus is here, the lady. She understands and loses that she's not in the right frame of things and at the right place. She actually comes back to the wife, to the husband, and stays back. So this is how, the Bhrigu system works. I mean, Saturn as a Karak, as a debilitated planet, has a lot of role to play. And first it will give, in this case also, first the house, the planets will give the result of the house. Here Mars and Venus actually represent a child also. So first the lady will have a child through marriage of this individual. This individual with the lady whom he gets married, he will have a child because Mars and Venus will first produce a child. And then the lady would elope with a Chandal or have a relationship and, get away with him, or, that's very clear. So this is the way it is to be analyzed. I've tried to explain it. So this is how the play of planets happen, and you can always just look at the chart and understand it, understand those indications. Now, when it will happen, how it will happen, a lot of complex things. You have to rotate Venus, you have to rotate Saturn, you have to rotate Moon, you have to see transits, and then you come to a conclusion of that. But what I'm trying to explain you is education, profession, and Saturn being a Chandal, and doing the negativity with Venus, enticing the lady to get into a wrong relationship with a person which is represented by Mars, which is again represented by Saturn. So Saturn, it doesn't mean that Saturn is reputed to do everything negative. It has three roles to play. It's got profession, it's got education, and it also gives a relationship of the native's wife into an extramarital relation where she goes and elopes. So this is how we analyze things in a horoscope, and then of course you have to see these are like indications how it will happen, etc. is a different thing to be seen. So this is a short video trying to explain you about the play of planets. It's only for those who know astrology and will find it interesting, and I hope whenever I get time, I put the short clips of whatever I learned. I hope you'll find them interesting and good. Thanks, and bye for now. This is Shanker signing out. All my details are on. You can always be in touch with me. Thanks. Bye.